Hey everyone, welcome back to the Inchstones podcast. You know I love me a good dad in the special needs world, and I am so thankful that my orbit collided, with Evan Rosenblum's. It is phenomenal to have him here on the show today on Inchstones to share his journey as a special need dad to his daughter Sydney, and the meaning, the change, the transformation of what Sydney's being in this world and how it's impacted him. Evan, thank you so much for being here today on Inchstones.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Before we pressed record, we were laughing about, just the trajectory of this life and small wins of what I call Inchstones. Take us back. You said that it's taken you a good bit to get to the place that you're in right now. What does that mean? What does that mean for Evan today versus when you and your family were experiencing Sydney coming into this world and her diagnosis?
Yeah. So Sydney is severely disabled. I mean, if you look at her on paper, she is, I'm just going to say it. She is what many would consider like worst case scenario as far as like diagnosis. And when you look at her chart goes, she is severe cerebral palsy, bilateral PVL, which means brain damage. If you look at her brain scan, one doctor explained it this way. They're like, it looks like a shotgun blast through her brain. There's just holes all over it. She had a traumatic brain injury. When she was 6 weeks old, she had something called a necrotizing enterocolitis, which is a really nasty infection in her gut when she was still in the NICU. And most infants that get that while in the NICU, unfortunately pass away within like 24, 48 hours. Wow. She had emergency surgery. They were able to remove a third of her gut, but we believe that she suffered a traumatic brain injury during that surgery, which led to the brain damage. And then at a year old, she had something called infantile spasms, which is a really bad situation again. So she's run the gamut. She had a heart surgery. She's had lung stuff. I mean, so now, she is nonverbal. She's non-ambulatory. And like I said, on paper, it's really bad. But she's the best. She is the best person in the whole wide world. She has this unbelievable personality. She's funny. She loves music. She loves to dance. She's naughty. She's exciting. She's dangerous. She's a thrill seeker. She's smart. She's social. She's a risk taker. I mean, she's everything. She's an amazing, she's my best friend in the world. We eat, like, she loves to go eat. She loves steak. She loves ribs. She loves chocolate. She's super opinionated, and she is the absolute best. It's, another dad of a severely disabled little girl once said to me that the first 5 years after his daughter was born, it felt like in an action movie when a bomb goes off and the main character is just completely discombobulated and you hear that ringing in your ears, and you just kind of look around and you're like, what is going on? And eventually the ringing stops and you can kind of stop and kind of figure out what's going on. You get your bearings and you're like, okay, it's time to move forward.
Yes.
That was like the first 5 years for me, where you're just like, what is happening? You're moving forward because you feel like you have to and you're supposed to, but you have no idea what you're doing.
Well, also too, I mean, like time, I know it's a social construct and all these things. Yeah. It's amazing though, when time just keeps going. It's just like anything with what I compare to like the grief timeline or anything. You can't slow down time. Time is going to march on, and it is the only constant. And it is wildly disorienting when you're going, whoa. Nope. I don't want to, nope. I'm not ready to keep going because I need to just like get my bearings. And that does. Yeah. It was years.
Yeah. I mean, and you don't prepare for it. I mean, the day that Sydney was born, let's go back to the beginning. My wife was 25 weeks pregnant. Her name is Samantha, and she was 25 weeks pregnant, and she was like, something's off. And we went to the hospital, and it just escalated super quickly. They, did the thing where they took her blood pressure and they looked at each other and they're like, they did that thing where they were kind of giving each other like nonverbal cues, like,
and you're like,
this is bad. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on here? And minutes, later, it was escalating so quickly that it went from, let's get somebody else in here. Let's get somebody else in here, to like, all of a sudden somebody had me on the side and were like, hey, do you have any family in the area? You should probably call somebody because this is bad. And I was like, what do you mean bad? And somebody said this to me. They said, your wife is in danger and your baby is in danger, and this could go real sideways. Actually, the way that they said it to me was that both of them could die. And again, this was like on a random Sunday. And I was like, what is I was drinking the night before. I was like, I'm over on this day.
Exactly.
Like, and so like all of a sudden I had to prepare for like real life, where like the doctor's telling me that like your wife and your kid might die. So figure out how you're going to deal with the rest of your life today. What ended
Yeah.
up happening was they scheduled us for a planned C-section on the Tuesday. Sydney was born. She was 25 weeks and 2 days old. They said if she shows vigorous signs of life, we'll try to save her. If not, if she comes out and it's clear that she's not going to survive this, we'll go into comfort care mode and help her pass. She flung her arm and made a sound, and everybody like dove into action and saved her. The NICU team was right there. They sprung into action. They saved her. They were able to save my wife. She was in the ICU for another two weeks after that. So I had my wife on the second floor for 2 weeks in the intensive care unit. I had my daughter on the fourth floor in the NICU. I was going back and forth trying to figure out like what is going on. In those 2 weeks that my daughter was in the NICU, she had like a heart surgery. There was a lung thing going on. It was, and then my wife was finally able to come and join me on the fourth floor. I had my boss being like, "Hey, when are you coming back to work?"
Yeah.
What is happening right now? I have no idea. So like that was like the first month.
Yeah. And someone once told me, it's like, you have to just be where your feet are. Like you can go into so many different realities at the same time. It's like our brains play those tricks on us that I can only imagine where you were trying to just normalize and locate where you actually were in your body at those moments, because so many different realities were begging you to return or be there or whatever that was.
I was trying to grab on to like work. Actually, I was trying to figure out how to because work was the only like constant thing that I could try to, it made me feel normal. Right. So like when I was trying to
control the controllables.
I was like, I know this is normal. I can, as I was an executive producer at TMZ. That's my background. Like I helped create TMZ Sports, the TV show, all that stuff. And so when I would call back into the office and I was working with my staff, like that was familiar. Right. So like in the NICU, everything is so unfamiliar. Everything's beeping and people are talking to you, and it's like a foreign language when people are talking
it sounds like what you're saying. I mean, I talk about this ad nauseum. Your identity was like that. Like I was so similarly based in like, no, I'm a really, really damn good New York City mom. Okay. Like we are going to go to those same story, book playings, and we're going to go to Shakespeare in the Park. Like that identity, I wanted that so bad. And so I hear that same kind of thing. It's like, those shifting of the hats, you're like, no, I can do this because I can do that really well.
Yeah.
And that is disorienting whenever you want to tap into something and you realize that you're being pulled, the universe is pulling you in a way that's going to just radically, likely, in some ways, destroy that identity for a little bit and force you into a new one.
I had convinced myself, because my daughter was in the NICU for a total of 143 days.
Wow.
I remember that. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget that because I'm 44 years old. So I was around for the pager era when we used to text people 143 for I love you.
Oh yeah.
And she
I'm
came
43. I'm exactly with you.
There we go. All right. So when she came out, I was my wife and I were keeping track of the days, and she came out after 143 days. And I'm like, I don't know, there's a weird connection.
No, it definitely is. I believe in that stuff.
So, after 143 days, it was 4.5 months in the NICU, and I was convinced at the time that, my identity was wrapped up in work. Everything was, if I could get back to work and I could just go back to work and get my life back on track, then all this will be normal again. Mm-hmm. And I was convinced of that. But the reality of it was that my life was never going to be normal again. And then the life that I had, that was gone. It was gone. And the day that my daughter was born, it was, that was, my whole life had changed, and I hadn't accepted it yet because I didn't know what it was going to be yet. How could I? Mm-hmm. One day I just rolled, everything was one way. And then the next day, everything was radically different. Like raising a kid with severe disabilities is just a completely different world. And, my daughter's about to turn 11 years old, and it's taken me a long time to like really, truly understand it. And really those first couple of years, like I was saying, I didn't really understand. I think I was kind of fighting it. I was trying to hold on to this life that I had, and also kind of trying to come to terms with like what was happening. But like, I feel like where I am now, I'm in a really good place now. I've left TMZ. I've been gone for 6 years. I feel like I'm in a really good place in my career where I've kind of figured out the balancing act, and I've embraced where I am now. I'm in a great place with my daughter. I have a son. He's 2 years younger than my daughter, and we're in a really, really great place. And I'm in a place where I'm truly, truly like enjoying them. And it's great.
That is a tough trajectory to hear whenever you're earlier on in the journey, because I remember looking so much to people that were ahead on this, and I was begging them for stories like that. Like, tell me when this is going to settle. And they just kept saying, you have to sort of live through this and let all the details sort of dissipate to become this new normal. And I don't even know if the only constant is change, right? Like my kids are finally like everything's moving. I would say like the train is moving, the locomotive is so strong right now. But like, you know what? We had some really severe storms here in Jersey, and like sometimes like a tree's down the tracks, and it does pull you back into that feeling of sometimes you don't realize how even within a typical life, you get to a new normal, that's something then derails it too. And that's been like a constant thread that I know a lot of guests have talked about with me, is that it does still have an ebb and flow to it because of the nature of a diagnosis like these that are life altering.
Yeah. Yes. There was a moment where it was kind of a wake up call where I had gone back to work and I had forced myself to go back to work, and I got a call from the hospital that something radical had happened with my daughter's care, and they were concerned that she could die at any moment. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't believe I had gone back to work. And I remember I raced back to my car and I was trying to drive back to the hospital. And I just kept thinking the whole time, like, I can't believe I went back to work when she was still in such a state where like this was even possible. And like, if she were to die and I was in the office, like, I don't know, how would I forgive myself? And like, that was a real like awakening moment for me where I was like, what am I doing? Like, what choices am I making right now? Like,
how, I'm just thinking about like, you're talking about this, going back, the identity stuff, the aha moments. What do you think it is? How do you share that? Or how do we as this population of special needs parents share the magnitude of these aha moments of like making those choices and changes? Because I think something that I deeply struggle with, I try to do, and I feel like I'm growing in it, but constantly like, how do you share when you were going through that and you're like, I have to radically change this? Like, how did you tell your employer? How did you tell your friends and family? Do you think that they ever really understand the gravity of how these choices foundationally change you as a human?
No, because I barely understood it. I mean, so how could the people around me understand it?
I know, but why is that? Why do you think that is?
A couple of reasons. Number one, I think, as a man, I felt, when we were going through all that, I felt, and maybe it's just me personally, but I just felt like when all of that was happening in the 143 days that we were in the NICU in the hospital, I felt like there was so much support that were being offered to the mothers that were going through that. And there were just not a lot of resources that were being offered to the fathers. And that my job was just be strong and supportive for my wife and my daughter. And so like, I felt like that was the role that was kind of being assigned to me when I was in the hospital.
Head down, march on.
Yeah. And like, just be strong for everybody else. Like, everyone else is going through it and they're allowed to be emotional and they're allowed to like process all this stuff. And you just have to be supportive. So just like be quiet and support them and figure out how to go back to work and get everybody's life on track. And you be the rock and you figure out how to like, carry on and support the family and do all the things you need to do. You need to do to like, move everything forward and keep everything on the tracks here. And it wasn't until like maybe like a couple years later where like I felt like I was starting to break down because I had been doing that for so long with this mentality of like, just stay focused and marching down this road. And like I had been going to therapy, but it wasn't, I had a moment like a couple years later where I was like, I haven't opened up about any of this and talked through like my emotions. I hadn't processed it because like I was saying, it was just, I was still in that like moment after the bomb went off and it hadn't cleared yet. And then all of a sudden, one moment, I was like, "Oh my God!"
It is like sensory overload. I mean, it's almost like it's overload. And it's so funny. Like as an autism mom, like I see it so much and frequently in my children. But you're absolutely right. Like it's almost like it's too many things coming at you that like, how could you even process it? I think that I've gone through different phases of processing my children's diagnosis. I mean, they're 11 and 8, like years later. Years later, because my daughter was getting diagnosed and I had a 7-day-old baby who I knew within weeks. I said, he's absolutely autistic too. And there's like this funny phase of like, wait, I'm going to have 2 like this? Like, there's no way. Like someone wake me up. Like someone wake me up from this. So I know what you mean.
Let me ask you a question, because I know like there's the sadness element, but what about the anger element for you?
Don't think I can. I guess I might have felt forms of anger. I think I was in more of a sadness and grief over the loss of what I expected life to be. I don't know if I've ever been deeply angry. I think I felt deep sadness over my typical older daughter not having typical siblings. I felt deep grief over how their lives have affected family and relationships, but I don't think I felt anger. I don't think I've ever felt deep anger. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but I don't think I felt deep anger. I just think confusion, deeply, deeply confused as to how this could happen. And that's what's always rising for me. But I think that that's a complex emotion. I think that one of the things I always say is that, it's all yes and. Everything is yes and. There is not a single thing in this world that you experience, especially in middle age, especially as a mother or parent to children with complex medical needs, that is not deeply, deeply yes and. Because the second, that I realized that I'm still changing a pull-up of an 11-and-a-half-year-old, she's looking to me and doing this little gasp that she does, which means she wants me to sing to her. And I'm singing Belle. And I'm thinking the reason that she loves Belle is because all Belle does is have her head in a book. And that's all Millie does. So it's just like, it's all those yes and. So I don't think anger hasn't been the thing, but I'll let you know if it does.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what about you? I mean, has that been a thing?
It was a thing for me. I mean, anger, I was never angry at my kids, obviously. I was never angry at my wife or my family or even the doctors, because I always felt like everybody involved in our situation did the best they could to, give us the best possible situation, including my wife, the doctors, my kids, all the therapists, everybody involved. I never pointed fingers and was like, this is your fault. You're to blame. No, none of that, because I always felt like everybody tried and really tried the best that they could. So my anger came out in different ways, where I would kind of like misdirect my anger at like people. I would just
So maybe like the fuse was shorter for things.
I would call it like my pilot light, right? I had a pilot light that was like on all the time. And it was like, instead of like, it was like on and ready to go. So it's like, even though like I was happy with my family and happy to be around my kids and, coming to terms with everything, if something set me off like outside, it was like, it didn't take that long, because I was like realizing that I had this like standing anger at the situation that I hadn't really come to terms with. And if something happened, if it was somebody parking in a handicap spot or something like that, or in a disability, Right. I'm trying to not say that, because the more I'm in the community, I realize like I'm not supposed to say that. And it's true. But like an accessible parking spot, I would see somebody in a spot. I'd be like, hey man, like you're not supposed to be there. And then if they would sass me back, then I'd be like, why don't you respect the process?
Yeah. Okay. So now that I'm thinking about it, I will say this. Someone shared that after I had shared that Millie was diagnosed and I have a newborn, and I shared this with them, they said their response to me was, so-and-so broke her leg last week. It's been a really tough process. I will tell you, I remember being like, hell no. Like Teresa Giudice flipped the table over. Like, you are not going to compare a broken bone that's going to heal to a lifelong diagnosis. But that's maybe the anger of at the macro level became for me, okay, I no longer reside in a typical parenting world. Right. Full stop. And those anger points now just sort of beat off. Maybe a little bit easier, but I think maybe that's where my anger was that, how dare you compare this to a typical developing thing that is so painfully typical. And I'm sure, I don't know if you feel this way, like having your son, having my older daughter, there are things as a 13-year-old girl, in Central Jersey that she's experiencing that, her friends' parents and I that are good friends of mine, they'll say, oh my God, like, here we go, XYZ is happening. And I think, how lucky are we to experience that? This was supposed to happen. This is on, we are like 3, 2, 1. Yep. Talking about boys in the 8th grade dance. Like, that's supposed to happen. So let's not get our panties in a wad over the fact that this is happening. This is beautiful. This is happening. They should be pushing us away. They should be really, really annoyed that we took something of theirs that, or they took something like that should happen. So typical parenting, I think that was probably my anger point. Now I see it so differently. I'm so thankful. I'm so full of gratitude to get to experience both.
Yes. Yeah. Same. And the other thing that's become a thing that I'm starting to realize more with having a typical son and, a daughter with severe disabilities is that my son, who is amazing, my son is great. He's such an amazing kid, but the way that he views the world as the younger sibling of, an older sister with severe disabilities, there was a moment where I realized like the way that her normal is the way that he thinks like the world should be. And there was a moment where like, he was like, he would always ask me to like carry him out of the bath. Like, walk out of the bath, go to your room. Be like, well, how come you can't feed me cereal in the morning? I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, you feed Sydney. Okay. But you can feed yourself. And then finally like occurred to me, it's like, he thinks this is the way, this is normal. And I'm not treating him normally. Less than, because she gets carried everywhere, bathed, treated and he's not getting all that. So he thinks like he's getting treated like
he has a
less
lesser
than
experience than
right.
she does. Right. Right. Well, you think about that. I mean, from a developmental point of view, that's so physical, for kids. Like, again, even the reverse, I'll catch my 13-year-old daughter saying, I know it's like I'm running around, bathing the younger two and doing all that. And it's like she didn't pick up her basketball. And it's like, can you fill up my Stanley Cup?
Right.
And I had to think to myself, and I don't know if you say this or your wife does too, I'll say consciously out loud, hey, Millie, I need to go fill up your sister's water bottle for basketball. You're going to have to wait here for a moment because I want her to hear you're important too. You're right. You can absolutely do that on your own. But you know what? I'm going to press pause so that you see me pressing pause and they're going to be fine. I mean, there might be a urination accident or something, but that's just fluid around here. That's not even like, it's not even anything at this point. But I wonder if that's similar to your son, is that it's like, notice me just because I don't know any different.
Yeah. And we try to make a point to give him, as much extra attention and explain. We try to overly communicate with him about everything, because we don't want him to sit and, go back to his room and think about go down these weird paths about why no, we try to, and we say, every time you have a question about it, let's talk it out. Let's try to have these have these conversations anytime you feel, a certain way about this and that. And we feel like that's been good and healthy about everything. And the older he's 8 now, and the older he gets, the more questions are going to come up. And he's starting to ask more questions about Sydney, which is totally normal and healthy. And it's been great. And I feel like it's an interesting experience raising him alongside her. It's different than the way I was raised because I didn't have anybody in my family, immediate or extended, with a severe disability.
Yeah. They will, as I follow, and I always say, standing on the shoulders of giants of older, hey, Alexa, stop. Some older mother advocates that have children with severe autism that are in their 20s and, late 20s now, young adults living, in group homes or independently with aides. I ask so often, well, what's your daughter doing? What's your other son doing? And when I hear these things that these other siblings are doing, I mean, you want to talk about me getting choked up. They have, your son and my oldest are experiencing something that is just so unique. And they're not unique on the broad scale of things, but they are very unique in probably their communities. And I really do wonder what is being transformed in them because of all these small moments that their typical peers are just not experiencing. And it's honestly, it's so damn beautiful, but it's heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah. But what's great? We went to a home this weekend of another kid who has severe disabilities, and he's deaf, and he's got, he's nonverbal, and he's got a lot of other things that are similar to Sydney, maybe worse in some areas and better in others. But a situation where, he's visibly to other kids that are in his age range from let's say 8 to 12, a lot of kids who are typical, who don't have exposure to kids like him. I've seen it with Sydney, where a lot of kids go, what's going on? They may be a little hesitant to engage. Where my son, he gets in the pool with this kid, and he's splashing him in the face, and he's treating him just like he treats his sister. And the parents of this kid loved it. And I loved it too, because it's just you know what? Bennett, my son, is treating this kid like any other kid. And I think that's what I would want for my daughter. And I think that's what these parents want for their son.
Right.
And it's the best situation, because that's all we really want. We just want our kids to be able to just have a childhood and have friends and be treated equally and as normal as they possibly can.
Because they're full humans. I always say there's a full soul behind all these different behaviors or compositions of their body, and it's never going to be black and white about what they absorb, how they absorb it, how they experience it. We never will fully know exactly how they're experiencing it. But at the same time, did you really know that when Bennett was, younger too? I always think I didn't really know what my typical daughter was thinking at 4 anyways. She was attempting to talk. So the conditioning, and then really unconditioning yourself to sit in those moments and go, this is so incredible to see your son doing that with another child that again, and it's a typical thing to do, to just splash and just play and be in roughhouse in a pool.
I loved it.
Those are the moments that I always say are the most deepest life luxuries that you will ever receive. You cannot purchase it. And people wish they could, right? People wish they could purchase that feeling that you and your wife got to experience, and hopefully I'm sure as time goes on, you'll share those moments more as your son ages of like what you saw in him at those younger ages too, because it's so impactful.
It's great. And I'm excited to see the kind of person he continues to grow into.
That's
It's great.
right. That's right.
And by the way, my daughter went to a camp this past weekend, a couple weekends ago. It's called Rad Camp, and it's a camp in Orange County, California, and it's a sleepaway camp for kids with disabilities. And Sydney is one of the kids with more severe disabilities, but most of the counselors that work at this camp, when I would talk to them, they're volunteers, they're kids that go to local high schools or junior colleges or colleges around the area, but they had somebody in their lives that had a disability, and they're there because they were touched by that person, and they're volunteering. And when I would talk to them, they want to go into a field where they work with other people with disabilities, and they want to help. And it was just such a beautiful thing. And it was so inspiring. And when you see people like Bennett or, your kids or other families like this, it's like, it's great. It's such a beautiful, it gives you hope for the world.
It does. Well, we're supposed, again, and this is why I was so drawn to your story. And when I found your Substack originally, is that there's a lot of isolation in the general population of severe disability families that have children with severe disabilities, because like we said before I press record, like it takes 30,000 times more mitochondrial energy for me to like fly to Florida like I did last week. And I think about that all the time of like, why do I do this? I do it because they're deserving of it. Just like my older daughter is of wanting to get her Brazilian bronze tanner thing out and whatever. Like they're deserving of getting to Florida and splashing in Pap and Grandma's pool. They are deserving of that.
That's
and
right.
It's going to take much longer. And I think that by getting out into the world, and that's what I loved when I saw your post, is that if we don't engage, there's no way that we're going to change and wear the identity that has been given to us as a special needs parent.
100%.
And if you isolate, it's just like water. I don't know if I have a deep philosophical side to me. I love the work of Bruce Lee, and I've been reading his
Oh, yes.
I've been reading his daughter's book called Be Like Water.
Yep.
And it's so incredible because it just says, you're not supposed to stay stagnant. No living thing is supposed to stay stagnant. It will decay. It will get moldy. It will get decrepit. So we have to keep moving. And I think that that's one of the things that, again, I saw so immediately. I was like, oh, this guy gets it. So how do you and your wife keep that mindset of like, we're going to get out there. We're going to create the army. We're going to keep moving. Where did that come from? And was that always who you were, or you and your wife, or did that happen because of Sydney?
My wife is, she's the best. She's a very active, she's not a person who likes to sit around. And she's always been like one to go out. She likes adventure. She's the one pushing us to go out and do stuff. So she's an amazing person. But Sydney she takes after my wife like that, right? She's not a wallflower. She is such a social butterfly. She likes to meet new people. She likes to try new things. She wants to go out. She wants to be a part of everything. And it's like, how can you look at your daughter and she so desperately wants to be a part of all these things and not, give for the world. So when she's asking for these things and she's signaling that she wants these things, Sam and I are just like, all right, whatever you want, we're going to do it. Even if it's uncomfortable for us, we're going to go out and we're going to make it happen. We went to Disneyland and Sydney said she wanted to go on the roller coasters. So we figured out how to get her on the roller coasters. And, she went on Space Mountain. She went on the Incredicoaster, which has a loop-de-loop. And it scared the hell out of me. But she went on it. And after she came off, she was using her communication device.
Yeah, again?
More.
Oh, I know.
Like, you got to be kidding me. Like,
okay, so I know y'all are West Coast, but you got to get to Disney World and my son and daughter, different children, same diagnosis. My son is a nervous Nelson to a T. The kid won't even go down the slide. Like, I'm like, go ahead, buddy, let's go. He's like Griffin, like the death. Millie is Sydney. She goes on Soarin', is at Epcot.
Yeah.
And then the Tower of Terror at Hollywood Studios. The video that I captured will give me joy for the rest of my living days here on Earth. She is gasping. She is so damn happy.
Yeah.
She is like feeling everything in her body, the senses, everything. I'm thinking, that was worth it. Whatever hundreds of dollars we just spent to go to this park, that was worth it.
Cried when I saw Sydney surf. There's a group out here called TheraSurf. Have you ever heard of TheraSurf?
So we have a walk on water out here and Surfers Healing.
Man, when
same.
When Sydney was born, she was 1 pound 9 ounces when she was born, right? And like everybody was telling you all the horrible things that she's never going to be able to do. Mm-hmm. And then we got with this group called TheraSurf, and it was a pro surfer who put her on a surfboard. And I thought when we got connected, it was going to be like, oh, they're going to put her on the board and she's going to float in the water. No, she was bombing down these waves, like ripping. And you should see her face. Her smiles ear to ear. She's going crazy. And then when she comes in, she's going more, again. And it's like, all right, you got it, man. Whatever you want, we'll do it again. And it's like I was saying to you earlier, like on paper, her brain is a mess. Her body's, wrecked, all this stuff. But all she wants, they want to live.
That's the thing. They show us they want to live. They want to engage. And I think it is the most beautiful silver lining every day.
1,000,000%.
Is that as I put, pants out to have Millie slowly get herself dressed in that agency, I think no one in their right mind expected this to be how I am in July. My child, I didn't want her to be in school full year. We're supposed to be at camp with her sister. And yet she's sitting here and she's trying so darn hard to get her pants on and she's doing it. And she looks up and I think, she's living. She's much more alive and in the moment, in the present moment. And to your point about, as they age too, they, don't knock an 11-year-old autistic girl. She's going to become a tween too. She's going to be annoyed at mom and her sister annoys her too. And it's so amazing to be able to witness it through a set of eyes like we do because of what they present as. And it just is who they are.
She is my daughter's my best friend. She's amazing. And I couldn't imagine my life. I was telling you before we started, I couldn't imagine my life without her. It's like I said, at the beginning when she was born, I didn't, it just happened, right? I couldn't prepare for it. It's not like we saw this coming for a couple of months and we had a chance to, come to terms with it and talk about it and try to prepare ourselves. One day it happened and you're just in it. And it's like, your life's changed, figure this out. And it's taken a while. And if anybody's going through this and they're listening to it, like, I understand. I understand. I get it. And there's going to be people that tell you like, oh, everything happens for a reason and all that stuff. And it's like, I didn't want to hear that. They're going to send you I know that you had the amazing woman on who was saying everybody send you the Welcome to Holland poem. And she's 1,000,000% right. Like, I didn't want to hear that and I wasn't ready for it. 11 years into it, I understand the beauty of it. I was not ready for it when I was in the NICU at all. Don't send that. But like you just said, it's you got to live in the present. You got to take it day by day. You got to try and figure out like how to appreciate the moment when you're in the moment. And then eventually you'll get to this.
Well, the interesting part is that every philosophy of the world, every religion, every great theologian, what do they always say? It's like the power of now. Stay in the present, do the next right thing. And it's like, what a gift to be given this tiny human that you are in charge of to raise that actually allows you to do that, right? Evan, thank you so much for being here and sharing your family story. It is it's palpable how much you love your kid.
I love it every day. I'm so grateful for it.
Well,
I'm grateful for you. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation.
Oh my gosh, it's my pleasure. I there's nothing that gives me more greater joy than sharing one-on-one stories of caregivers in both the trenches, the peaks, the valleys, and everything in between, because I firmly believe that we are all like living like with such intensity that if we don't slow down to have one-on-one connection, we will lose out on a lot of the deep meaning that we are given because of these kids. So thank you for sharing your story today. And I'll be sure to share your Substack here with everyone listeners on the episode summary. And Evan, thank you again for being here today on Inchstones.
I appreciate it. I can't believe we talked about Bruce Lee too. That's awesome.
That's right. All right, everyone. Until next time here on the Inchstones podcast.